The longleaf pine ecosystem of the southeastern United States is dependent on fire to maintain its characteristic bi-storied structure with sparsely spaced longleaf pines in the canopy and a diverse understory composed of grasses, legumes, other forbs, and patches of short-statured woody species. Although the longleaf pine ecosystem once dominated the southeastern United States, excessive logging, conversion to agriculture, urbanization, and fire exclusion following European settlement have substantially reduced its range, making it one of the most endangered ecosystems in the United States. Thanks to restoration efforts, the extent of longleaf pine on the landscape has increased from a low of 2.6 million acres in 2005, approximately 2.2% of its historic range. In 2009, America's Longleaf Restoration Initiative established a range-wide conservation plan to increase the amount of longleaf pine land cover to 8 million acres by 2025, growing from just over 4.5 million acres in 2019. Today, longleaf pine communities are often managed with prescribed fire at intervals that reflect the historic fire regime of being burned approximately every 1 to 3 years on average. The life history of longleaf pines is tightly coupled with low-intensity surface fires, which occurred as the result of lightning ignition events, as well as use by Native Americans in their land management. Longleaf pines have at least 3 distinct life stages, each with their own adaptations to survive the fires that it evolved with, and each with varying degrees of vulnerability. The first is the grass stage, and seedlings can stay in this stage for 3 to 15 years. The bolting stage is the intermediate stage, where seedlings initiate vertical growth and are at their most vulnerable. And finally, saplings become mature longleaf pine trees. Longleaf pine seedlings in the grass stage resemble, as the name suggests, a bunch grass. During the grass stage, the trees invest in energy stores or non-structural carbons in their root system, which help them to recover and continue to grow after a fire. Their apical meristem is protected from fire, either located below the surface of the mineral soil, as in this seedling here, or surrounded by a dense tuft of long needles, as in this seedling here. The root collar is the part of the root system that the stem emerges from, and it's where the seedlings can resprout from if their above-ground biomass is consumed in a fire. For a grass stage seedling, an exposed root collar that is positioned above the surface of the soil is highly susceptible to mortality during a fire. Because of the position of its root collar, this seedling would be highly susceptible to mortality during a fire, compared to a seedling of similar size that has a root collar positioned below the mineral soil. Even if the apical bud is killed in the fire, a protected root collar can survive and initiate growth from axillary buds as a form of resprouting. In addition to the exposure of the root collar, the size of the root collar influences the ability of grass stage seedlings to survive fires. Root collar diameter, or RCD, is an important predictor of mortality and is positively correlated with survival, so seedlings with a greater root collar diameter generally have higher rates of survival in a fire. Following the grass stage, longleaf pines enter a period of rapid growth that's referred to as bolting. To achieve a height sufficient to escape surface fires, bolting longleaf pines start to grow vertically with minimal to no branching, resulting in a bottlebrush or cactus-like appearance. During this bolting stage, the stem and the apical bud are both exposed, increasing its susceptibility to mortality from a fire. Notice how the white bud is no longer protected by the tuft of needles like it was in the grass stage. Although longleaf pines have thick bark, they experience their highest level of vulnerability during the bolting stage. They experience about a 50-50 chance of survival during a fire. And what makes one sapling survive and another die, we don't quite know. But, at last, the saplings that do survive eventually reach a height that keeps their apical bud out of the flame, and they have sufficiently greater chances of survival from here on out. Large saplings and adult trees have a thick bark that insulates their cambium and protects them from lethal heating during fires. When we're talking about thick bark, this is what that looks like structurally. This is the inner bark and the outer bark, and it's protecting the vascular core and vascular cambium in the center. You can see the vascular cambium pretty clearly here surrounding the vascular core. The cambium is where new cells are produced, which allows the stem to grow laterally or become thicker. And the vascular core is where the cells that are responsible for moving water up from the roots and through the rest of the tree are located. The thick bark insulates these structures, protecting the integrity of the vascular cambium and the vascular core from lethal heating during a fire. In summary, longleaf pines are an overall wonderful example of a fire-tolerant plant species with a suite of fire-adaptive traits which protect them from the low-intensity surface fires that they evolved with. Although not every individual survives every fire, the ecosystem as a whole depends on frequent fire to maintain its structure and its diversity.